This episode of Where Did the Road Go is brought to you in part by our Patreons. If you want to become a patron, go to wheredidtheroadgo.com. And now our show.
Transmission start. Welcome to Where Did the Road Go? Join us as we wander off the path and explore lost history, consciousness, the paranormal, unexplained mysteries, alternative thought, and much more. We are present on the web at wheredidtheroadgo.com. Now here is your host, Soraya.
Welcome to this, I guess we'll call it a Fringe News episode. And here on Where Did the Road Go? And with me tonight, I have Adam Sane.
Hello, Soraya. Nice to be here.
Ren Collier.
Hey, everyone.
Red Pill Junkie.
Buenas noches.
And Melissa Martell.
Hey, everybody.
And been a while since I've talked to some of you.
Mm-hmm.
Busy.
Things happen, and time moves, and I don't like that. It's very confusing. So, anyway, there's a couple news articles we're going to get to, but I also wanted to talk. Shirley actually gave us a bunch of stuff to talk about, but she can't join us, unfortunately. I wanted to talk about the December New York Times article, because it's been about 8 months since that was published. And the people behind it were promising big things at the beginning of the year. And as far as I'm concerned, I haven't seen anything.
No.
To me, it's exactly what I expected. Nothing's really changed. The few things they put out were thoroughly unimpressive. The only really interesting thing is some of the collected materials, which I don't, I suspect probably weren't new. It's just that we've been able to analyze them better now. So I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts?
Okay, let me jump in. I don't know. No, yeah, basically, no. Go next.
What's the purpose behind it, though? Like, why would people do something that's like supposed to be so big, and then it's sort of like there was
money involved.
Money, yeah. A distraction for something. I don't know.
Because it's a psyop. It is a psyop from the start, and it's always going to be a psyop.
Yeah, well, that's also a good possibility.
It's very likely that it is a perception management.
Exactly.
Then again, we have to acknowledge that on these eight months since the article was published, some things have changed. I mean, some attitudes have changed in mainstream media. I mean, there is definitely some level of snarkiness about the topic has been erased. I don't really see the arch skeptics being really on a mission to try to debunk all of this, if you know what I mean. I don't see them, being 24/7 trying to debunk all of this. Mm-hmm. So we have to acknowledge that, as far as we might begrudgingly accept, because all of this happened out of, someone like Tom DeLonge, like taking the baton and leading ufology forward. Although, Tom DeLonge doesn't seem to be leading to the stars, and at least not as a spokesperson. It seems that after that big foobar with Joe Rogan, when he really, was really painful to watch him, made a fool of himself. I think the people of To the Stars told him, okay, you can sit with sit this one out, and Luis Elizondo will be now the face of To the Stars, which I think is what's happening.
Yeah,
but I mean, look at all the people that have been involved with this thing from the start. I mean, half of them are like ex-aviary people. There's ties to like Bigelow, which is like an aerospace and defense contractor. I mean, like you've got Hal Puthoff involved, who goes all the way back to, you know, like SRI research and stuff. I don't know, like it just, and even the people who were supposed to be like debunking this, I mean, who were those people? So like let's say our famous, everybody loves Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? Well, he's also a defense industry shill. Like the people, it actually makes me more. It makes me more suspicious that no one's debunking it, because the people that would be debunking it, but their lack of debunking seems to add legitimacy to it, and that legitimacy seems to be part of the perception management, like you mentioned.
Here's my take on it. That the reason why our skeptics or the skeptic movement is not following on this, number one, is because the skeptic movement is self-imploding for a variety of reasons. For example, Lawrence Krauss, who was once a big figure in the skeptic atheist movement, has been on a lot of accusations for allegations of sexual abuse and things like that. So there's that. And the other thing is that personally, I feel that the skeptic movement is more outraged by the things that are happening right now with Donald Trump than with what's happening with the UFO scene. That is my.
I agree totally with that.
That's a good point, Red Pill. One, I would ask this though: could part of the reason be that the extraterrestrial meme has been taken out of this whole thing, because they did come and say, well, instead of it being ET, they're saying, well, we don't know what it is. We you know, it's genuinely mysterious. So does that kind of steal the skeptics' kind of thunder, so they're not going to go after it as much as like, because the ET really has a ridicule factor to it?
I think the only skeptic that I'm seeing that is actively involved with following the story and criticizing it is Jason Colavito, who I mean, his main focus is debunking ancient aliens kind of stuff, and you know, I don't think that. I think he's made several good points with that regards, but then again, you know, criticizing ancient aliens is like shooting fish in a barrel. But then again, I've seen him going after people like Valet and going after the people behind To the Stars, like trying to connect the dots in ways that I really don't agree with. But yeah, I've seen him. Writing about the latest developments, and for example, that video in which Hal Puthoff was in some kind of conference in Las Vegas talking about the alien alloys, metamaterials, and all of that.
Well, we know if we go back to like, at the very earliest that I can think of, like in 1998, you have like Catherine Austin Fitts talking about how, she was approached to kind of take part in this program about introducing the idea to the American people that we live in a world in which aliens exist and they live among us. And you see shades of this going all the way back to, I don't know, like Ingos 1's penetration and the stuff that's in that. And I just feel like this whole thing is just kind of the next step in whatever that program is. And I mean, who knows if the program is real, like if they're saying that aliens do exist and they live among us, or if it's just some kind of like societal control thing. But I think this is just the latest development in this project that's been running for at least 20 years.
I have a question. Like, where is Tom DeLonge? Like, what's up with him? Is he even involved? Like, I haven't kept up with this case at all. I mean, the guy's just sort of there on Joe Rogan.
He's been abducted.
Rather awkward. Well, good.
I think after
I don't hear anything.
I think after that embarrassing interview, they kind of just put him into the background.
Yeah.
He's not the public face anymore, like Red Pill said.
Which goes to show, I mean, that in itself is interesting, because it goes to show that he is not the one calling the shots.
Yeah.
No.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I just find it funny, like what made them? Did he just do this on his own, or what made those people think that he would be a really good representation, for their
Right, because he could appeal to the youth. I think
yes.
that's all. I think that's all that it is. Even though Tom DeLonge is like my age, I mean, he's in his early 40s, but you still have a huge contingent of millennials and post-millennials that just love Blink-182
Yeah, but do they
and really,
still love
and really
Blink-182?
respect him.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
I mean,
Yeah,
the whole Tom DeLonge thing to me seemed like I mean, okay, so Blink-182 was popular when I was in high school, right? I haven't thought about Tom DeLonge in like 10 years, so like seeing him reappear like this was kind of strange.
Red, you'd be surprised, man. I knew quite a few people when the whole Tom DeLonge would work around a lot of younger people.
Wow.
And so like when Tom DeLonge started doing this, they would talk about, Blink-182, they're my favorite band, and these people are like 20 years younger than I am. Okay, so there's definitely that. But the thing is that I don't think they got behind in droves. They might have looked at it with some interest, but some of the people that the kids that I say kids, I mean they're in their early 20s now, but they would just kind of look at that and kind of laugh at it like, what is he doing? That would be their attitude on it.
I mean, for me, it seems like it kind of reminds me of Nixon bringing in like Elvis to the White House. It's kind of like some
kind of like that. Yeah.
Some 80-year-old undersecretary of the Navy was like, in between doing lines of coke in the Pentagon, was like, oh man, the kids, they love this Tom DeLonge guy, and they decided to bring him in.
Maybe whoever did that is just really out of touch.
Did they have a choice though? Because Tom DeLonge had always been interested in it. How many?
True.
How many that would get the youth excited about it were out there that were into UFOs?
Right.
He's convenient.
I mean, he was probably the only person that expressed any kind of interest in it.
Yeah.
Because remember, he quit Blink-182 basically to just focus on UFO research.
Yeah, and props to him for that. I mean, that to me is
Big sacrifice.
Speaks about integrity.
Well, what it all screams to me, like especially the whole thing lately is, and this is something that I've seen like Gordon White bring up in his archaeology series of blog articles. Like there seems to be this need for this narrative to be pushed about extraterrestrials, and that it's sort of like it's like the whole X-Files line. I hate to bring this line up because it's so cliche, but about sandwiching the truth between two lies.
Mm-hmm.
Like let's push the idea. Let's keep people's eyes on the stars and not looking at themselves and looking at things like psi research and stuff and how.
But is that what
is
is happening? I don't feel that they're really pushing the extraterrestrial narrative.
Well, they're pushing the extra-dimensional kind of thing, and like, I mean, it might as well be the same thing. Like,
They're also
why? I mean, why not go with the easy Leslie Kean type of stuff? Close encounters of the second kind, of having bizarre close sightings of military pilots, encountering these objects that seem to display a technology that is far above, human capacity, which is the Prevost narrative.
I think they're easily forgettable, though. I think no one's forgetting that, this whole instance. Like, we're still talking about it 8 months later, and a pilot is just another pilot, right?
Sure, but at the same time, they're also pushing the skinwalker narrative, and that is what I still don't get. Why go on those two diametrically opposite fronts? Because here are, like the two poles of the UFO narrative or the UFO research. The people who go with the nuts and bolts angle and say, oh yeah, we are visiting with aliens and they have technology that far surpasses us, and our pilots have seen them and they have encountered them, yada yada yada. And on the other hand, they're telling, oh yeah, but on the other hand, there are also aspects that border in paranormal, poltergeist activity and mysterious disappearances and cattle mutilation and all of that.
Isn't that sort of, I mean, that's something I'm reading a lot of today, is that that there's like all these different things we perceive as different phenomena are actually coming from one source. It seems to be a trend,
Sure.
or at least something that's showing up.
And that point of view is becoming more and more popular now.
Yeah. So
Yeah, but
to Red Pill's
you
point,
sell that to the military? Can you sell that to the Pentagon?
yeah.
But
And to
you
Red Pill's
can with
point,
the-
like, I was going to say, what's the point of the narrative? Like, why is the narrative being shifted? That's the real thing you've got to look for. And I don't have an answer for that, but
Well, they are talking a lot about this advanced aerial threats.
Mhm.
So what do you do with that? If something is in the sky or it's in space and it's quote unquote a threat, then that just to me just makes me think that there's that, and as I've said before, it lends the credence to the whole idea that it's just a push for militarization of space.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And I would
Yeah.
think that Bigelow Aerospace would be quite interested in getting in on that.
yeah, exactly.
And then you have Trump announcing that he wants to
Space
do
Force!
his little space force. I think that's funny. It's like
I think it is. I think Adam, I think you're on the money there. I think it
Yeah.
probably is a push towards the weaponization of space.
Sure. Define it as a threat. It's
So-
unknown. It's an unknown
Get
threat, but
money
just
for
define
the
it that way.
I was gonna say, so do they know that there's a threat there that obviously we don't know? That's why they want to what are they militarizing it for?
Or just say it's a threat. Or that's all you guys
To
really
make
got
us
to
all
do.
paranoid?
Yeah.
Maybe
Well-
it's just a threat in the sense that it is there, we don't know what it is, and we can't control it. Ergo, it is a threat.
Well, what better way to pump trillions of dollars into the hands of aerospace and defense contractors than some unknown threat that we can't even define?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's just what I was
Yeah.
going to say.
Yep.
Good one.
Yep.
No argument there, man.
Hey, do you remember? You guys have seen Watchmen, right? The
Yeah, I
movie.
was about
Yeah.
to say that.
But you remember, what actually happens in the actual graphic novel.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, it's a fake alien invasion.
Really?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, that's something that Gordon White mentions in that series as well. Like the idea of staging fake UFO encounters and staging basically fake alien encounters was something that the Air Force was looking at doing and might have done for a while.
Well,
So
this
it
is
might still be
protected
doing.
European territory,
Yeah.
which I don't know if I happen to agree with that. I mean, that to me is too conspiranoid. You know what I mean?
It is, but it's sort of like, I mean, you know about all the crazy psyop kind of things that the CIA
Sure.
and stuff are working on. So it's like, I don't think it's like outside of their either like capability to just like stage UFO encounters as some sort of like method of societal manipulation. Like, I mean,
Sure.
these are people who created the modern art movement as a psychic weapon, like to use against the Soviets. So it's like,
Yeah, and if you want to go with that narrative, playing devil's advocate, you could go and say that the Nimitz encounters, when Fravor and his men went to investigate, they were conducting war games.
Mhm.
Therefore, their aircraft didn't carry live weapons.
mhm.
They couldn't shoot. They couldn't shoot the UFO even if they wanted to.
Yeah, because they might shoot it and then figure out, oh, this is one of ours.
Mm.
Or playing the
Well-
advocates in the other direction. Maybe someone figured out a long time ago that if you actually try to shoot these things down, they retaliate in a bad way.
That's true
Or
too.
they just have technology that, I mean, you can shoot at it, but it's ineffective. We're so far behind
this
it.
could be like this a very in a mirror kind of way. And I'm thinking of that famous Tehran case of 1976, when the pilots were trying to track the object with the radar, and at the same time, their systems were telling them, oh, the object is also like targeting you down. It's almost like in a mirror direction, mirror kind of reaction, that if you are a negative toward the phenomenon is going to be negative toward you also.
Yeah. And when I say like the idea that, we might have staged UFO encounters, I don't mean that all UFO encounters are staged. I just mean that some of them might be. I mean, if we look at like, I don't know, see, UFO organizations from the very beginning have been like infiltrated by intelligence agencies. Mm-hmm. I mean, like if you look at NICAP, a lot of those had and specifically people who were trained in psychological warfare were members of their board of directors and stuff. So it's like, and I think this is what Valet is getting at a lot too. And sort of, the possibility that the UFO narrative could be used as some sort of psychological weapon is very strong. It's probably been used for that. And the whole like New York Times thing, this just stinks to me of that same sort of operation. Just being updated, I guess, for the modern era, because people stop caring about UFOs, like it's not on people's minds like it was in the 50s and 60s today, But for some reason, to someone, it's important that we keep thinking about UFOs. It's like important that we keep talking about UFOs for some reason.
Not sure about that. I mean, guys, we live in an era of fake news. That people don't rely on mainstream media anymore. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons of that is because of the disruption of the internet. That people started to share and disseminate content on their own freely, through the World Wide Web. Mm-hmm. And I think that the UFO narrative has always been a very, very strong component of the rise of the internet since the early days. I remember when I was in the early 1990s, and what I did was go to the forum boards and subscribe to newsletters to learn about UFOs. It's always been the case. It's always been the case.
But with that, it's become even easier to manipulate people and spread disinformation, because there's no filter on the internet, for the most part, there's no censorship, and people don't check sources. People don't really pay attention to their.
But then how do we see the acceptance or the way that the mainstream media has taken on this recent development on the new UFO narrative? How do we see the New York Times saying, okay, yeah, we'll print this? Do we see that as a change in the paradigm, or do we see that as a sign of the despair from mainstream media, newspapers, and saying, well, if we don't give what the public wants, we're going to be out of business in less than 5 years?
Yeah. Well, my question is like, it's probably down to demographics. Like, there's a certain type of people on the internet. Yeah. So was this expressed first on the internet, and then it showed up in the New York Times? Like, it's like, who are they dealing with? Who are they talking to? What's the age? Like, old media is older people, and new media tends to be, millennials, younger people, maybe my age, in late Gen Xers. Mm-hmm. Whereas old people still are watching news, and they believe, like, if you're 70 and 80, I work at a seniors gym, and I mean, they watch the news still, and they believe everything it tells them. So I don't know, maybe there's still that dynamic that they're trying to, be in tap with.
I think the decision to use the New York Times as the outlet for this information was a calculated one. I mean, because it gives it an air of like prestigiousness and like factualness. I mean, because the New York Times is a notable organization.
Legitimacy.
Exactly.
Yeah, even Stanton Friedman used to say, there was what he called the New York Times paradigm. Skeptics will say, well, I don't believe in this UFO nonsense. And he will say, why? And they will reply, because I've never read about them in the New York Times. Therefore, I know they aren't real.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that's interesting that suddenly it's now. So, exactly. Because it was never before. It's like they were like, well, we want to make it real. They could have done that 20 years ago, I guess. But something's changed for sure if the New York Times is
Something's
writing about
changed
it.
for sure.
It either
Well-
means the New York Times is not as good or it's real.
Probably.
And I hate
I
to
don't.
get all like Richard Dolan on you guys, but I mean, I do think that something like what people think of when they think of disclosure is probably on the horizon. But I think it's going to not be the truth. It's going to be like, it's going to be like a fake disclosure. Like they're going to disclose something, but any of us who've been looking at this stuff for a long time should know that it's probably not going to be the truth.
They'll probably
It's-
just tweet about it.
Then there's Grant Cameron, who says that maybe the government and the powers that be that know the UFO secret have been trying to disseminate these horror stories about the aliens, that, oh no, they abduct us and they eat us and they rape us, whatever, so that when they actually disclose the truth and it's, oh yeah, they're here and they've been here for a long time, and really we really don't know what they want, and it's, oh, that's it. That doesn't sound too bad. That's another aspect that has been considered among UFO researchers.
Well, what happens when they disclose this information, but they also disclose the fact that, oh, well, there's aliens all over the place and they look just like you,
Yeah.
Like,
Well, the other thing they could do is disclose truth in with lies, sort of a very narcissistic technique. They don't have to actually lie to you. They can just weave truths and falseness like they always do and make it confusing.
Yeah.
well, I mean, in the Catherine Austin Fitz stuff and in Ingo Swann's Penetration, like, they're basically told that, like, the quote-unquote aliens, like, are already here, and they've been here for a long time, and they've completely infiltrated us, and, like, they look just like us. Like, there's a part in Penetration where Ingo Swann runs into this woman in a supermarket, and he gets this really weird vibe off of her, and, he talks to her and stuff. And then, like, the mysterious Mr. Axelrod tells him, immediately afterwards that, oh, yeah, she was an alien. Like, they look just like you. There's no way you can really tell that they're different.
And he told him, stay away from her because she's really dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, what's the point of that narrative? Like, it reminds me, I don't know, something about it reminds me of sort of the atmosphere this country was in, like, right after 9/11, where, they had the whole, like, if you see something, say something thing, like, everyone's suspicious of everyone else. Like, that's like a powerful control mechanism to put on people.
But you see that all over the internet, even Facebook today, people like trying to make citizen arrests and going crazy about, thinking that somebody's doing something that they're not. I mean, just in general, without being an alien.
This is something that Mike Leland blogged about a long time ago. He made that thought experiment of what happens when, if the powers that be actually disclose the UFO reality, and they told about the alien abductions, and he considered the possibility that abductees will be considered fifth columnists and traitors, and they will be chased down and hunted down.
Wow.
You have people like claiming that people's children are hybrids and they need to be destroyed.
Yeah. Do you remember that video of MIA, this singer, pop singer, and there's this video of her showing red-haired children taken down on a bus, like taken to a prison camp. And a lot of people, I remember that a lot of people in the alien, UFO world said, "Oh my God, this is kind of like what is going to happen," because obviously there is in the UFO mythos the idea that people who have red hair, they have the Celtic, Gaelic genes, and they are the ones that are more likely to be abducted by aliens.
So it's almost like it's building up to give people permission to attack a group of people.
Oh my God!
Without
feeling
feeling
in America.
Yeah, without feeling any remorse or having to explain it, just do it because they're hybrid aliens. They're not humans.
Right. Yeah.
No, you don't know that. To make that confused.
The first thing you do to your enemy is to deprive them of their humanity.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's important, like, anybody knows anything about stage magic, You know, it's always important. Like, the magic happens in the hand that you're not looking at. And that's the thing, like, I think we have to remember here. Like, when they're putting forth these narratives, and we have to try to figure out what the other hand's doing, because they're trying to do something. They're trying to slip something through or do something while we're distracted. Yeah. And that's the real gem. That's the real truth. And we have to keep our eyes on that.
That actually reminds me of a time like I was in Las Vegas and I was on stage with David Copperfield. Totally. Yeah, I won't say it because I know he could sue me. But if you are watching the stage, there's something going on behind that. I mean, it's obviously all not real, and there's like think of it like there's a tunnel somewhere, or they've told you something specific, like David Copperfield has never actually spoken to this person. Well, no, he hasn't, but somebody else has that he knows.
Right.
Like think of it that way.
Yeah.
There's a podcast called Alice Isn't Dead. It's done by the people who do Night Vale. And I don't want to give away anything of the story. It's a really good podcast, but as they're coming down to the end of it now, the thing they uncovered, this horrible underground mystery, they get it written up, and I think it's in the New York Times if I remember right. And they're thinking, well, this is going to change the world. Everyone's, this is going to be in the paper and people are going to know about this, and it comes out and it doesn't really change anything. And it just left me thinking of, the UFO article. It's like, here's something that you would think people would stop and go, wow. And it didn't really change daily life at all.
Maybe
I think
we
kind of knew that was what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Or maybe it did, but we will only figure out 100 years from now.
I think that it did. I think that it did short term, but see, the news cycle moved on.
Sure.
And that's kind of what all the people that got.
But what about the people at large? I mean, what about people who started to speak more openly about this? Because, I know that Greg Bishop interviewed Diana Pasulka, who is an academician, and I know Shirley knows her very well. And I remember that in that interview that Diana told about someone, a college of her who used to make fun of her for her interest in UFOs. And after the December article, this guy phones her because he wants to create some kind of seminar or study to present to the board of the university in order to study UFOs. And she told her, drop dead. You're interested in this now that it's gaining legitimacy now. Okay, well, tough luck.
Yeah, good.
Part of that could be hopping on the bandwagon, though.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. People will do that if they see something that is popular, no matter how fleeting it may be. This stuff does kind of come in waves, though, doesn't it? I mean,
true.
Every time that we have, UFOs become popular and then they don't. Just like anything else in popular culture.
Fair enough. Well, let's look at some of these other news articles we have. One of them that's kind of connected. I don't have an exact article. But Shirley was mentioning that David Wilcock has stepped down from Gaia, and
no! What will
David
who?
And there's been some talk about him and Corey Goode having a huge fallout, and it's like, oh
no! I just signed up to get all the courses.
I can see already a mothership full of blue avians, weeping because of this.
Oh, so it's just kind of like, well, that looks like it's imploding nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hey, it is on topic. Wasn't it firmly established that the mummies were absolutely fake?
I don't know. Was it?
Yeah, did we ever get an update on
wasn't that pretty recently? That they found out that the fingers or that it was actually like one of the mummies had like votes from 3 different individuals or something like that.
I don't know.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
But that doesn't surprise me.
Oh no, not at all.
It's unfortunate because they present it so with such a good air of authority, like it's legit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you need to do in order to sell it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, people will go
True.
for just about anything at this point, but they present it as if this is a scientific discovery, and it looks very good when you see it float across on Facebook and stuff.
So here's my idea. Maybe this guy is bailing out now because he knows that sooner or later someone is really going to crack down on Gaia. The reason why I say that is because of other articles with regards to Atta, the little Chilean mummy that was displayed by Greer on that infamous documentary of him. And there's been a lot of documentaries saying how the people who conducted the DNA study behaved in a very unethical fashion. So
Really?
maybe something tells me that it wouldn't surprise me in the least that the Peruvian government were to, unleash a massive lawsuit against Gaia, in the near future.
What is all this stuff about Luciferian beliefs?
Yeah.
On Gaia, I don't know
know.
anything. I'm reading it right now, and it seems like it just seems real way out there. Like
Yeah.
whistleblowers, Luciferian beliefs, upper management engaging in physical satanic practices.
To me, is Alex Jones kind of a pedophile.
Hell yeah.
Kind of stupidity.
What is the source of that, Melissa? Where are you getting that?
I clicked on the link in the group.
Yeah, that's in his letter of
That
resignation.
Cheryl Lee,
Yeah.
it goes to a video of his letter of resignation.
Wilcox
and
is saying
posting. No, not Wilcox.
Other people are
Other
speculating.
people are speculating, and I'm thinking that sounds a little elaborate. That sounds because I'm not sure that Satanism has anything to do with this.
Not only that, but there's a huge
Everything
difference-
is demons.
Yeah, everything is demons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
There's a bit.
Luciferian thing is like a Pizzagate psycho kind of thing. It's like
Exactly.
that's what they were really into.
They perform satanic rituals and child abuse in order to,
Like- Alex Jones on a thread here.
Yeah,
But there's also a difference between Satanism and Luciferianism.
Yes.
you
But
know,
they
and-
say
explain.
both. They say Luciferian and physical satanic practice. I'm like,
Do
what?
explain.
This
Brian.
is nice.
Huh?
In my
To
opinion,
explain for the audience.
Oh, well, Luciferianism is more about enlightenment. It's more of a positive way forward, whereas Satanism is more about standing against the norm. Being because Satan means what's one of the terms that whatchamacallit used?
The adversary.
Yeah. So the opposer.
Right.
In the Satanic Bible, LaVey talks about if you really because he's writing this in the 60s and stuff, and he's like, well, if you really want to be satanic, you go with the more fascist look now rather than the hippie look, which is the in thing, because Satanism is all about bucking whatever's popular.
So you just go against whatever. So if
Right.
you were a hippie 10 years ago, now you're not.
Well, whatever the popular trend is, you don't go along with. You go to the
Yeah, what I
opposite
know is that
side.
Satanists nowadays, they go against religious fundamentalists in the United
Yeah.
States, and that's why they promoted the erection of that Baphomet statue. I don't remember
Right.
where.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
guy was
in
quite
Oklahoma.
interesting. That
Yeah,
was
that-
an interesting.
That is the Temple of Satan, and they have
Oh.
done. They're doing some interesting stuff. They're very a very positive group. They are pro. It's funny, but they're pro religious freedom. They're pro,
Yeah.
like they put out tweets when the whole anti-Muslim thing was at a high point. Not that it's not still at a pretty high point, but saying, if you're scared to walk from one place to another in your own neighborhood, you call us and we'll escort you.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
That was cool of them.
And
Yeah.
they put out a comic book or a coloring book in Florida schools because the Florida schools were distributing religious pamphlets to the kids. So they said, okay, well, here's our religious pamphlet. And it was a coloring book talking about not discriminating against people because they're different.
Awesome.
And of course, the Florida, but it had this satanic overtone to it. So of course, the Florida schools went, well, you can't do this. And they said, well, if we can't do this, then they can't do that. And they said, okay, fine. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a big overlap with like kind of like new atheism and the Church of Satan and its current incarnation.
Yeah.
Some of the-
this whole
yeah.
thing about Luciferianism that Melissa is talking about,
Mm-hmm.
that is from this link that Sherry Lee sent, that looks like that's from Wilcox's letter.
Really?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
his letter of
Yeah.
resignation. Apparently.
Yeah, that's in there.
Well,
So that is Wilcox
let me see.
saying that.
Oh wow.
Hmm.
Maybe he's trying to get a job on Alex Jones.
I just read,
He may
through
be.
it because it's massive. But yeah,
Yeah,
I mean-
it's a long letter. Yeah, at first I
Well,
thought this was someone,
you know,
this was
sometimes-
someone responding to
Well,
it. And
it was on the post, the original post of the video. But I mean, I guess sometimes what happens is within a group, you can get people who are abusive and into strange things hiding amongst and hiding under titles of Luciferian or people put that to them. It's like you have a giant group, you have a lot of people. So there's a lot of room for people to hide in a group and do abusive things, right?
I'm also not sure I would trust anything coming from David Wilcock.
No, I've
You
never.
think?
I've watched a few things of him, and I've never subscribed to anything.
I had listened to a few interviews with him on Coast to Coast, and they would always start out really rational and interesting, but by like the last half, I'd be like, oh, okay, you've left the planet. All right. You know?
Maybe he really should.
Yeah, maybe. And of course, he claims to be, I believe, the reincarnation of Andrew Casey as well.
yes,
Oh,
it does.
gosh.
So,
He says he
I
looks
read
like him
something
too.
about in that letter alluding to some kind of strike among the Gaia employees or something like that. So maybe part of it was a response to some abuse on behalf of the company. So maybe they're going through hard times, and in order to stay afloat, they are starting to abuse the employees. It wouldn't surprise me in the least. But I don't know. I mean, I've never been interested in anything this guy has ever said.
Oh man, I mean this thing is juicy. I mean it really is.
I don't know. I mean, I heard a lot of stuff about YouTube and stuff cracking down on paranormal, videos or paranormal
True.
stuff. So I don't know. Maybe this is sort of tied into, like, I have no idea, but I know that there's being crackdowns on alternative media and possibly paranormal content.
I don't know that it's paranormal. I mean, we've never had any problems with the YouTube channel.
Maybe conspiracy
You
stuff.
remember
Yeah,
Crazy
that's
out there
crazy
stuff.
woman who went to the YouTube headquarters and actually I think she stabbed someone,
Jeez.
really. Oh yes, yeah, that's right. Yep.
Yeah.
and that's
I
because
think
YouTube had
she-
taken down her.
She shot them.
Wow.
shut. My mistake. So
Yeah.
that's correct.
Yeah.
Well, it's because there's this unfortunate overlap with like conspiracy, paranormal stuff with like fascist alt-right elements too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, that was the thing that kind of set off all the YouTube problems. Was if I remember correctly, it was a bunch of alt-right and Nazi videos that got monetized, and people started complaining to the advertisers that their videos were running on that stuff. And YouTube had no choice but to crack down on everyone to make sure, to come up with
Right.
ways to make sure that stuff didn't get monetized, that hate speech and
Okay.
stuff like that wasn't being, these people weren't making money off of it.
This could be an excellent opportunity to talk about Facebook and the fact that some insider discovered that their moderators weren't deleting alt-right hate speech content on Facebook. And the
Well,
fact that Mark Zuckerberg even stood in defense of Holocaust deniers. And I really would like to know your opinion on these guys. I mean,
Well, I know Alex Jones doesn't get much flack on Facebook. He's not cracked down on, and he says some pretty crazy stuff.
He also
Yeah,
is
but I
very
mean-
popular and makes a lot of money.
That was my
Yeah.
consensus. It's all about money.
Yeah, I mean, Zuck was like straight up like Holocaust deniers deserve a voice too. It's
Did
like,
he really?
Yeah.
Did he really?
Well, I mean, he's like an alien. He's like an android. Like honestly, if like Ingo Swann and all these people are right and aliens are among us, like Zuckerberg is 100% one of them. Okay, like
He's Commander Data, right?
he really is.
Xeno.
He's totally removed from like reality, and
Okay.
and yeah,
But here's my opinion, guys, because I remember that when I started being a news administrator on the Daily Grail, and I wasn't the only one. There were 4 other guys doing the work, and there's still another bunch of them. But there was one of them who used to put all Holocaust denying content on his news briefs, and that pissed me off greatly. But it was something that was permitted, for the sake of, okay, we have to consider all ideas, yet we are free to attack the ideas, as viciously as we can, so far as we don't attack the person who uphold the ideas.
Okay.
So what is it? What should we do with that kind of stuff? Holocaust denial, flat Earth. I recently wrote an article for Mysterious Universe comparing, the craze with flat Earth with some other crazy ass doctrines that used to be very popular in Germany prior to the World War II, and that in some ways kind of almost spearheaded, the rise of the Third Reich. So what do we do? Do we censor them outright and say no way? No, in fact, the people who start spewing this should go to jail. Should we say, okay, let the market of ideas, figure this out freely?
It's a tough one.
What do we do? I mean,
Yeah, it's hard.
We have somebody coming on our podcast to talk about actually the Third Reich and occult. So it'll be actually really interesting to see what he says. But it's a hard thing because if you stifle and you try to stop the content, then you don't know what's going on. You don't know what they're talking about, and it kind of goes underground. But if you let it go free, then it could catch on like a virus, and it's like, so what? How do you stifle it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this.
Who is it, Melissa?
I don't even have his name. I have to get his name. I'm actually ordered his book, so we have lots of time before.
Is it Eric Kurlander?
Yeah. That's actually it. Thank you.
I had him on the show. He's a good guest, and he, I think, is where what Red Pill is talking about. Some of those weird theories that people that the Third Reich had, like the world ice theory, and those kind of strange ideas.
Hollow Earth theory.
Yeah, really lit. It kind of lit this. It lit this air of disbelief.
Yeah.
In rationality.
But it's kind of
authority.
It's kind of eerie that it's everything's sort of repeating. Like there's a huge rise in this tribal sort of like it's happening, and I'm like I'm just in disbelief.
Right.
It's happening because we're letting it happening. I mean, I'm sorry, you guys know that I have a.
What do you mean as letting it happen? Like I'm like
this. Like, no, not you in particular.
No, I know
like,
not me, but like.
Our society's obsession with like hearing the other side, this like West Wing kind of thing, like the marketplace of ideas. Like we should always hear
controversy.
We should always hear everyone's like everyone's opinion. I'm sorry, I don't think that's true. Like things like promoting fascism, promoting genocide, like those things don't have any place in society.
There's some ideas that are more valuable than others.
Like, and I'm sorry, like there's no place for like fascist ideas in society. No. I mean, we shouldn't allow it even under the pretense of like hearing both sides. Because the idea is, it's like the idea behind hearing both sides, right, is that you can find some sort of common ground with people. Like, what common ground am I supposed to find with someone who's advocating for like putting people in ovens, right? We only put half the people in ovens. Okay, well now we have a compromise. You know, like there's no compromise there. And the other thing too, a lot of these people who put forth these ideas will cry about free speech. They'll cry about it. You know, they'll dump their diapers about not being able to like talk at a university about how, you know, black people are naturally dumber than white people or whatever. But the minute they're in power, the minute they have the ability to take away your free speech, you can bet your ass they will. They'll take it away.
Exactly.
Because it's not about free speech. It's about their ideas over yours.
That's treason, bro. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And well, that's an important thing. But it's like there's still a stickler. It's like, how do you stop that? If you're a proponent of free speech, how do you sort of balance that out where you're like, yes, I'm for free speech, but I'm going to stop that person, and then they can call you out because you have all these virtues and ethics and they don't. And it's like, you know, it's that typical sort of villainy thing. It's like, how do you come against that? Because when you say, oh, well, you don't have free speech, then they're going to call you out on it. It's a tough one. It's a tough line to go regardless.
Well, these companies can do things about it. I mean, like, I'm going to teach you all a real cool trick. If you want to like get rid of Nazi stuff on your Twitter, change your location to Germany, and you won't ever see any Nazi stuff in your timeline ever again. Because because Germany has laws against that kind of thing, and companies like Facebook and Twitter have to abide by those laws. So they have things in place that will block stuff like that from your view.
Right. A country that has banned the Nazi Party, yes.
Yeah, and so that tells you something. It's not about like they could do it if they wanted to, but they don't want to.
But then, like, what if fascism shows up in a different manner other than I'm a Nazi? That's
it's always going to show up in some manner.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, they may not call themselves Nazis, but the ideas are always the same. You know, like.
And let's be honest, you know, I mean, people in the alternative world have often been accused of when we entertain and promote alternative ideas that we are promoting Nazism, you know, and those kind of things. For example, you know, there is the accusation by skeptics that people like Graham Hancock and all those guys who study the possibility of an ancient civilization that taught to other civilizations, you know, like the first steps about, you know, language and farming and all of that. They saying, oh, well, that's it. It's the typical, you know, supremacist, colonist idea that, you know, stupid brown people can't figure things out. Therefore, you have to have these higher white people, sometimes that go and teach them. And it is annoying, but at the same time, we have to acknowledge people in Nazi Germany used to say that, you know, 80 years ago. And in that article that I wrote for Mysterious Universe, I recalled, I don't know if you remember that, Soraya, when I was very annoyed by that hit piece, or what I call a hit piece, by this woman who wrote about the electric universe theory. And how she put, the way that she put it was, everybody who entertains this idea, you know, not only they are idiots, but they are very dangerous, because this is the kind of thing that promotes dangerous things like distrust in vaccines and all of that. And I remember that you actually, you know, did a show about it. But that was in 2016, you know, before the election of Donald Trump, a man who doesn't believe in climate change and who makes a link between vaccines and autism. So what I did in that article is saying, okay, you know, I still feel that was kind of like a hit piece, and there has to be some kind of line a discernible line. But at the same time, I understand the concern. I understand the concern from the skeptics, and I feel that we, in the alternative universe, in the people who are interested in this kind of stuff, maybe we failed in overwatching what kind of stuff was disseminated, and maybe criticizing it when the time was right. And we didn't, and maybe we let it bloom, and now is, caused that we are where we are now.
You also have a lot of people out there that have had blogs or podcasts, and I'm not talking about anyone here, but there have been those people that decide, well, I'm going to let the flat earthers talk about their stuff on my show because I want all the sides to be heard. And that just disseminates it even more. So these people, the people that just kind of pick up on these trends, and I think that in a way makes it worse.
Well, the difference here is that, like, ideas like the flat earth or, like, Graham Hancock's ideas, they're not calling for, like, genocide or the creation of a white ethno-state. It's like there's a big difference there. So it's like,
you could make an argument that they are disseminating a distrust in authority.
Yeah, but that's fine. Not
necessarily.
I think that's those are the ideas.
I'm fine with that.
I don't see those ideas as harmful. Like, not harmful in the same sense that, like, getting people to, like, go bomb abortion clinics is. Like, there's like I think there's a line there, and but on the other hand, it is important that we criticize those ideas. Like, even if the person talking about Graham Hancock's stuff, maybe, like, went overboard, I haven't read their piece, but the idea that there is some sort of, like, Aryan civilization is kind of colonial, and we should look at it and at least examine it from that perspective. So, like, ideas like that are kind of like, that's not really what I was talking about, but more just like actual, like, fascist ideology being allowed.
Sure. And sometimes it happens that people who weren't really thinking about Nazism or fascism, their ideas were hijacked by those idiots, people like Nietzsche, or even the Theosophists, Madame Blavatsky. I don't think that her idea of trying to bring Eastern philosophy to the West, she had in mind, the arisal of concentration camps and gas chambers.
Right.
Yeah. But that's what happened.
Yes.
Yeah. That's true.
So I guess what I'm saying is there is a danger. We have to remind people there is a danger, and we need you have to keep yourself in check. Why is it that you are believing what you believe in? And do you have you checked the facts? Have you tried to do the research? Are you not being led by your own emotion and political, religious affiliation? Because otherwise, you're not being objective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to throw this in there. A friend of mine had a relative who she recently spoke to, who explained to her that not only is the Earth flat, but the stars are demons.
Awesome.
No.
There you go.
So
there you go.
Are you telling me I'm wishing upon demons all the time?
Not only that, but now I understand why astrology is evil.
Oh, darn.
Guys, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to say this. There is a real movement on the right, especially among evangelicals at this point, and people that are really staunch for Trump, that literally the Democrats have been demonized.
Oh, yeah.
Not figuratively, but literally. As in they are cannibalistic child eaters.
Yeah.
That they are controlled by Satan.
And all that started with David Icke.
If you don't like Trump, then you are there is this guy out there called the Fireman Prophet that says that if you don't like Trump, you are getting a high frequency that is controlled by the Illuminati Of course, the Illuminati is controlled by Satan that is beamed to your head
course.
to make you not like Trump.
Mhm.
And there are people that buy this stuff.
Well, I mean, I learned quite recently from a really close friend that in Poland it's severely religious, and there's exorcisms, and I mean that's like massive in other countries that are more
exorcism is on
conservative.
the rise.
It's huge, and Poland it's massive apparently, and
All because of yoga
yeah.
and Harry
But
Potter.
it wouldn't surprise me if you see it rising in the United States as a result of a more not like a massive
Oh.
conservative.
It's worrisome to me because this kind of thing, and you want to combine it with the flat Earth stuff. I mean, let's just go back to the Dark Ages, guys. Let's go back to burning people at the stake.
Well,
I mean,
you've got
if central authority breaks down, that's what's going to happen.
See, I have no
You're
problem
not
with
burning people on the stake, but you're certainly caging them, on dog cages right now. Children.
I have no problem with the bucking authority type of stuff and not trust, and questioning authority. The problem is the people doing it don't tend to have the education they need to understand
Okay.
what they're arguing against. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
if
they've
the
heard it
healing-
they've heard it on the internet, so they're like, well, that makes sense to me. It must be right. It's like,
Yeah.
but
And I mean,
no.
like if you're going through a shamanistic journey and it's like, okay, this person's having trouble, let's heal them. It's one thing, but if someone's like, kill the demon, and that's
Yeah.
like so horrible and ignorant and not. I mean, there's so many people who are so like not mainstream that would be damaged from that.
Yeah, I mean, you've got people like Ted Nugent, encouraging people to shoot Democrats. And it reminds me. Have you seen The Mist, the movie The Mist?
Yeah.
Like the sort of idea that you alienate a group of people, you dehumanize them, like either they're demons or they're aliens
Exactly.
or whatever, and then you
Exactly.
encourage people to kill them, and that's how you get genocides. That's what happened in Africa.
They're animals.
Yeah, you dehumanize your. I mean, that's what happened in Nazi Germany to the Jews. Yeah, I mean, we see this happening here in America, especially against like our Mexican and Black populations. Like there's this concerted effort to dehumanize a section of the population because it allows people to focus their hatred and focus, like, people look around them and they're like, why is my life so crappy? Like, why are my cousins hooked on fentanyl? Like, why is the world like collapsing in on me? And instead of looking at the people at the top and saying, okay, well, it's the fault of, the billionaires and all the people in this country who want to keep you there, it's the fault of the people who can't defend themselves, You point all that hatred towards a group of people that have no rights, or especially like immigrants who don't have the ability to go to the
make
police.
the argument that the people at the top are not really in control either. They're just puppets, and they're just playing a game that was put on by circumstances, but they are in no more control than we are. There is no cabal, pulling the strings.
Well,
this
I
is
don't.
a train that is being going on its own.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily mean like they're in control, like an Illuminati kind of sense.
Yeah.
But more in the sense that they're like people like Jeff Bezos who have, or just have billions and billions and billions of dollars, and we don't see wage increases in America, even though productivity has been higher than it's ever been. Like, and it's really just greed. It's just the desire. It's not the
Trying
desire
to play the game.
Yeah, it's just the desire to suck all the capital up to the top as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
All right.
That optimal note.
Let's move on to, I don't know, our first story here.
Well, we could talk about the story about the elites wanting to
Yeah,
preparing for their
Oh, yeah.
that is a great thing to go to. I think
That
You're right.
that is so optimistic. It made me
Yeah.
feel really warm inside.
By the
From
way,
C-
by the way, I sent you guys on the conversation here that link to about the fireman prophet. So
nice.
Okay, so this is this is off CNBC's site. Survival of the richest. The wealthy are plotting to leave us behind. And
Yeah.
it's the various types of basic bids for immortality that that the rich elite have.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be uploading their consciousness to supercomputers or leaving the planet or, bunkers where they can hide. And of course, they're also worried that, if things start to go to hell, what if their security, what if their money's no good anymore? How are they going to keep their security guards from turning on them and doing what they want?
Oh, yeah,
Look at
let's
it.
talk about some of the ideas that they had. Like some about the security forces thing. Like a couple of the ideas were, okay, well, we could have like timed like food trays that only give them food on a timed basis, and only like the owner of the compound knows the combination to it. Or like they could put disciplinary collars on them that would blow up if they like battle royale style, just fucking blow their heads off if they end up acting out of line or something. It's
Yeah.
Can I give some context on the article? So it's this guy that is he's a writer on technological trends, on marketing trends. Forgot his name, but it's there in the article. He's fairly well known. I think he's like a
Let's see.
Princeton professor.
Douglas Rushkoff.
Yeah.
yeah.
So he is sitting down to what he thinks is kind of like a TED Talk kind of setting. And he's sitting down and meeting with these rich, basically hedge fund managers. And they just sit there at the table and they talk to him about these trends that are going to happen in the future. And they start to talk about, well, what is going to happen after what would happen after a societal collapse? What would happen after climate change? They call this thing the event. And so that's kind of the context there, what he was talking to them about. The rest, that's kind of like the most kind of juicy part of the article. But the rest of the article is him trying to say, well, if you actually started to care about people and invested in people as part of your businesses and your technological empires, you might have a better return off that investment than just being worried about what you're going to do with your robot army later on.
And maybe if they invested about the planet all along in the past multiple decades, the biggest living being around.
Well, it was very telling because it shows you that these people, these billionaires, they don't have any hope left that they can affect any real change in the course of events that we're seeing unfold right now. They don't. Go ahead, Brittle.
Don't you think that these kind of stories make us? We owe Bill Gates a global apology. Because there was a time when Bill Gates was the baddie. Everybody hated him, but now he has devoted his fortune to try to solve those kinds of world problems. To try to cure malaria in Africa. He's invested his fortune in this. He's one of the good guys.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Well,
but there's a million other ones who aren't.
One of the things that I saw about this article is when they were worried about when their money is meaningless, and it sort of spoke to me and said it's all an illusion. The money, if they are thinking about the day when their money is meaningless, it means that it actually is exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that was a really profound thing for me.
Well, it says on a deep level that they know that all this wealth that they've built, that they don't really deserve it. Like they know on some level, this is in the hearts of like all the people who are like, people who own jet ski dealerships who are really into like prepping for disasters, They kind of know on some level that their gains are ill-begotten. right? That they've gotten them off the backs of other people. And so they're constantly terrified that there's going to be a comeuppance, that someone is going to open up the universe and say, hey, you, like, you don't deserve any of this. And I mean, it also shows you too, the like sort of blatant disregard for the humanity of other people. Like when you're talking about societal collapse and your major concern is like how to design bomb collars for your security forces, like that shows a lot about how they think about people. That's how they think about you and I.
Mhm.
You know, we're just meat to them, you know, and they'll do anything they can to save their own skin. And if that means strapping, you know, bomb collars on you, they'll do it in a heartbeat. They'll do it.
Yeah, just so they have some level of comfort that will last, I don't know, maybe another couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great quote by Arthur Miller that says, an era can be considered over when its basic illusions have been exhausted.
Mm.
Wow.
You know, something to think about.
That's profound.
Yeah. Props to Chris Ryan, who was the one who alerted me about it.
And, you know, that's the other thing, too. I know Soraya brought up, too, the idea that, you know, the idea of escaping off a world, of like a Mars colony or whatever. That's the thing that weirds me out about, like, especially if you look online, and you've seen a lot of this recently, like Elon Musk had this huge meltdown on Twitter. Like, if you, yeah, if you look at people like Elon Musk, he'll, every time anyone even puts forth the most milquetoast critique of anything he does, like 1,000 weird nerds will just like jump into your mentions and like, you know, like defend him. And it doesn't make any sense because I'm like, what do you have in the race here? Like, what do you have in the game to defend this guy? It's like, you know, when he talks about building a Mars colony and you know, evacuating off the world, like, you're not going to be on the manifest. You know, he's not building that rocket for you.
No,
Right?
but 1,000 years from now, those who are will pray to him as a Messiah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It will be, you know, the crusade of the Muskianists or whatever.
It's I read a document, like I read an article somewhere that like most of the problems and the pollution is from, you know, just a handful of companies.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like when I'm reading this document, they're like, let's get the hell out of here. It's like all along you could have done something different, but it's like you're a virus or you're a parasite and you're just like, let's just use this up.
Yeah.
Let's just move on out.
Yeah.
There's another
Okay.
there's another aspect to this as well. There's a short video out there of Noam Chomsky speaking about how Trump is a big distraction. And his basic premise is that he says that Trump is a distraction because you really have to look at the people that are underneath him, the people that are behind him. These people know that things are swiftly kind of coming to some kind of head, and they don't care. They want to get as much out of it as they possibly can. And so that video is a great great thought piece as a corollary to this article.
Mhm.
That this attitude is out there, that, you know, we are facing some kind of crisis.
Yeah. And I think I talked with you on your show about this, Adam, when we did our socialism show.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this is, in my opinion, I mean, you guys know my politics. So then this, in my opinion, this is the end result of like unrestrained capitalism and global industry. Like you have this going on for 200 years. And when you don't have any sort of like ethics in your consumption and in your like development, you end up exhausting all these resources, sucking all the capital up to the top, and then letting everyone below you just die out because, you know, why not? Like, it doesn't even make sense on some level. Like, it's like a basic lack of humanity or empathy for other people. And I think that's what the article, the Medium article by the guy really put forth. In, you know, they're asking questions about their security forces. And it's like, they obviously don't see these security forces as actual people.
Right.
You know.
Okay, let me give out the counter argument, and I'm gonna play devil's advocate tonight. What
You're
if
not getting those beams to your head, are you? Those frequencies. Red
Put
Pill?
your tinfoil hat on.
Of course, Sam. So what if we saw the Earth as a placenta, or as a cocoon for a caterpillar that first needs to consume as much plant matter as it can, in order to change and transform itself into a butterfly, and the butterfly is the death of the cocoon, and the birth of a child means it has to get out of the womb of its mother, and a way that nature signals that the birth is coming is that the womb, the placenta, becomes toxic, and a change needs to happen, otherwise, the baby will be a stillborn. What if we saw it in those kind of terms and saying, yeah, the Earth is fucked. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
You can. Yeah. The Earth is screwed, and it was necessary for us to screw it to drive it down and to consume all its resources, so we could become a star-born civilization. To go into the stars.
I don't know if I buy that.
But are you willing to build that on the corpses of 8 billion people? That's the ethical argument there.
I don't know how many people died in Africa when a bunch of Homo sapiens left the continent to spread into the rest of the planet.
I don't necessarily buy that thing, because that's a really good argument for people like that to do poor things and not take responsibility for it, in my opinion.
Okay.
I mean, we don't know that for sure. That's not factual. That's not anything we understand the planet to be. So I don't buy that, because if you go on and say something like that, then who's to say someone doesn't use that as a metaphor to get people to be like, don't give a crap.
For sure. And evolution was always used among, tried to justify terrible capitalism and not caring for the poor, and say, survival of the fittest, right? Mm-hmm. I understand that, I'm just playing devil's advocate.
I got that. No.
It's a manifest destiny argument. I mean, this is the same argument that the U.S. used to, genocide the Native American population of the United States and in our expansion into the West. Like it's ultimately like a colonial idea. Like, I don't understand, like, why can't we just live in harmony with the planet? There's more than enough resources on this planet for every single person living today to be wealthy and live in a standard of comfort that, we can have for everyone. There's no reason we can't just live in harmony with the planet. And it also makes huge assumptions about our nature as a species anyway. Like, can we even exist as a spacefaring race in our current form?
True.
Like, can we live on other planets? We don't even know at this point if we can, like, successfully colonize other planets, Like, we don't know the effect that'll have on us.
Yeah.
One of the arguments they use is that we need to spread out because we can't have all the eggs in the same egg basket. Maybe some asteroid will wipe out life on Earth. So if we don't have colonies of world, the human race will become extinct.
Well, it won't wipe out all life on Earth. It'll just wipe out human life on Earth.
And according to Corey Goode, we already have colonies off world.
Right, of course.
I forgot. Yeah. It's
alternative 3.
It's one of those questions about
exactly
what you think about the human race in general, right? Do you think that we have some sort of divine providence? Like, are we better than everything else on this planet? Are we actually smarter than all the other animals? Like, do we own this planet, or are we just part of it like everything else?
I think we're just part of it like everything else. We just have an illusion that we own it. I mean, I think you can go back in history and see that this idea that you can tame the planet, it's worked. And it's given us some comfort over all technology and advancement, but to a cost, obviously. But we obviously are part of it, because if the bees die, we're in big trouble. Like if they go extinct. So we are clearly a part of it.
And let's not forget too that like a lot of this sort of apocalyptic thinking is very pervasive in sort of the conservative Christian right in this country. Like you have a lot of people who are in power, even, who think that like we are in the end days, and that, you know, we're about to, you know, have a battle on the plains of Megiddo, and Armageddon's about to happen.
And it's not just that, Ren. There's also the whole pre-tribulation rapture. Well, they'll be out of here, and the rest of us are just going to be like, it's just burn, baby, burn.
Yeah. And so,
but I don't
so
understand that.
So who
Isn't the
cares
Armageddon
what
going to
happens?
bring 1,000 years of peace? You know, how does that work?
Well, so everybody gets raptured, and then the tribulation occurs, and everybody suffers through that. All the non-believing people, and then Jesus comes back with everybody.
Yeah, and then the Millennium Kingdom is founded, and all the people get reincarnated and stuff. And then, you know, it puts forth this idea that a lot of these people are like, well, I don't care what happens to the planet. I don't care what happens to everyone else, because it's all pointless, because, you know, Jesus Christ is coming back soon, you know? Yeah, and, you know, so who cares if the planet gets wrecked? Christ is going to fix everything when he comes back, and then we'll have the Millennium Kingdom, and everything will be fine.
Well, and that's one of the things that I have a problem with Buddhism, because the way that I interpret some of the things they say is they say it doesn't matter, you know, what happens to the planet. What matters is that you know, attain nirvana yourself, you know. That to me is like, no, you know, you should care about what happens to the people around you, you know. You should try to do the best you can to leave this place a tad better than when you first found it.
Doesn't what happens on this, like, doesn't what you do on this planet affect your reincarnation and all that other stuff? Like,
True,
I find it hard to believe that, like, in their belief. I'm not saying I believe that, but there's Buddhists who don't step on bugs. So why would they want to, like, destroy the planet?
Yeah, but the whole idea of Buddhism is to get out of the cycle of reincarnation.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah, let's get out of the planet in another means. You know?
So by destroy.
How to escape the universe, but they don't want to destroy it. They just acknowledge it's an illusion, and it's something to be moved away from.
Yeah, but it's an illusion you have to experience still.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a tough line, because, you know, like, I obviously believe in, like, the immortality of the soul and things like that, but it's also like I don't want to slip into nihilism and think that my life here, because I'm immortal, because I'm going to reincarnate, that my life here right now doesn't mean something too, and that what I do doesn't impact other people. And, you know, like, I want to make the world a better place for everyone. And, you know,
if it, like, for me, like, if you believe in a different realm, that realm's important, but obviously, why should it be more important than this realm? Why should you abuse and do crazy stuff here just because there's another realm? It's like, well, no, like, you know, chill out, right?
Yeah. Let's speaking of souls and things like that, let's go to the OB article. And this is from the British Psychological Society. And it says, researchers have identified a group of patients who are especially prone to out-of-body experiences. And I guess the issue I had with this is it kind of approaches it like, okay, out-of-body experiences aren't real. So what makes people think that this is actually happening to them?
Yeah, it presupposes at the very beginning.
Totally.
Yes. Well, it sort of makes it look like they have, like, mental health issues, does it not?
Sort of,
Yeah.
Well, the article basically says, like, there's some sort of, like, neural mechanism that they think exists for the sense of feeling like your body is in another place.
This illusion.
Yeah, an illusion of that happening. And the thing that irritated me about the article was that it seems to imply that all out-of-body experiences are just, well, you're laying in your bed and you feel like your body's floating. And that's totally not true. Like, out-of-body experiences, people go to different realms, you encounter entities. Like, it's way more than just feeling like you're floating.
I mean, I've had two at very different times. I had one when I was really young, and I was coming out on it was 2 stories up. I was coming out on the platform. Another girl had gotten to the bottom of the staircase, and I was chasing after her, and I slipped over the staircase and fell 2 stories down onto the pavement, onto my back.
Wow.
Yes, and I had a total out-of-body experience and saw multiple different perspectives at once. And I was really young. I was maybe only 4.5 or 5, so I didn't really understand it. It was only later that I was like, oh, wow. And then I had another one. They were both in traumatic circumstances, but by no scenario was I mentally ill. It was just a trauma, and I just went, poof, I'm going to leave my body now. Thank you very much. This is really intense.
It totally ignores, to all accounts, of vertical experiences in which people go out of body and are even observed by other people who are awake, like in an out of body state. Like the out of body experience, like, is obviously some sort of external thing that happens to people. It's not just a subjective experience. It's not just a lucid dream, and this research totally ignores all of these, hundreds of years of testimony to just like try to argue that it's like just some neurological phantom.
Like, when I had that experience when I was really young and I popped on my body, I could see that little girl running down the stairs. I could see my body laying below. And then eventually I saw my mom running down the stairs screaming. And then I saw the view from below, all like really quite simultaneously. It wasn't like some hallucinogenic, weird mental illness. I was seeing multiple different things that were actually really happening in real time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that every time someone thinks they've had an out-of-body experience that it isn't something else,
Sure.
I mean, there's a lot of different things that may be happening, and plus there's also the question of what's an out-of-body experiences versus what's remote viewing.
Well, I can be a pedant about that.
Okay.
So there is. And a lot of people get this mixed up. Gordon on RuneSoup recently had an interview with a lady who kept mixing those terms up, and it got on my nerves really bad. So remote viewing is a very specific thing. It is very specifically a set of protocols developed at SRI in the 70s to perform scrying, like what is traditionally known as scrying, under like a set of protocols that makes it what's the term? Like scientifically studyable. Like, it sets it up so it's like
or maybe more palatable for science.
Yeah, it makes it. It's both a protocol and a methodology. Like the methodology that you use to do remote viewing can be whatever you want, but the protocol is basically, like the viewer should be blind to the target. You can even do a double blind, and there's all these like rules that go into place. And if you're not following a protocol, then it's not remote viewing. And also too, that the experience of remote viewing versus the experience of an out-of-body experience are also two completely different things. Joe McMoneagle is extremely clear about this in several of his books, because he had both out-of-body experiences. And, he was an incredible remote viewer. He talks about, going to the Moreau Institute, learning how to do out-of-body stuff. And the way he describes it, like remote viewing, when somebody's sitting there doing a remote viewing, it isn't like they are in the place that they're viewing. It's like, it's more like tasting something, if that makes sense. It's like you get little flashes of images in your head. You get sensations like, okay, it feels cold. I feel dampness. I see the color blue. Like it's not, but an out-of-body experience is like you're literally there. Like, you're floating around like a ghost in wherever you're supposed to be. And the experiences are vastly different.
Yeah, it's completely different because with remote viewing, it's still in your mind and you're there. Without a body, you're out of your body and you're over there. Exactly what you said.
Yeah, the experience of remote viewing, you still know that you're like in a room sitting down, like, you can have your eyes closed or whatever. You still know that you're there in wherever you are, and you're just receiving information about something.
You're just
in your
getting
head.
you're getting images in your head, in your mind. You're
Exactly.
seeing
It's like you're
Yeah.
using your imagination, but you're not
Your
like
mind's eye. Yeah.
yeah, your mind's eye. Yeah, but an out-of-body experience is like fully out of your body, like you're a ghost and you're like flying around and you're physically in a different place. And Monocle talks about how, you know, each one kind of has different uses and that, you know, in some ways out-of-body experiences could be better to do certain applications, but they're more difficult to achieve and everything. But a lot of people get that mixed up and it's probably not that big of a deal, but like I think it's important to remember that the people are talking about two different things, at least people who've experienced both of them.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's like a pet topic of mine. So.
I've never thought of remote viewing as an out-of-body experience, so I didn't know people actually got that mixed up.
Well, the
Yeah,
lady
me
that Gordon
neither.
was interviewing, she was describing out-of-body experiences that like saints and stuff were having in these like religious documents that she had been reading in some like Vatican library or something. But she
Yeah.
kept conflating it with remote viewing. She kept talking about, well, this is what they were doing at SRI and stuff. And I'm like, no, it's not. It'd be closer if you were talking about that's what they were doing at the Monroe Institute. Is what they were doing.
Were you screaming at the radio?
I was
Ren?
yelling at the radio a little bit. Yeah, I mean it's
She was-
whatever.
He
It's
was
like
going OBE to try
Yeah.
to slap the head.
I mean, she was obviously like a very smart lady. She was an academic and whatever. But just getting those terms, I think, mixed up was a little irritating. And it's an honest mistake because if you're not like knees deep in this crap like I am, you probably wouldn't know or you'd think they're talking about the same thing.
Well, I guess the thing is, like, you could say that, all right, what if out-of-body experiences are just remote viewing, but with a different feel to them? You know what I mean?
It's possible. I mean, yeah, we don't know the mechanism by which it works. I mean, you're totally right. But the subjective experience is different. So I think it's good that we have two different words to describe each experience.
Fair enough. I wasn't suggesting they shouldn't. It's just, I feel like there is some. It's hard to sort of draw that line sometimes.
Oh yeah,
Maybe
for
it's
sure. Yeah.
Different degrees, different levels of degrees of the same phenomenon. It's like
Yeah.
There's also interesting things you can do with remote viewing too that you can't really do with out-of-body experiences. Like associative remote viewing is where, like you basically come up with a forced choice binary answer. Like is the price of silver going to be higher on Friday? And you can basically have someone remote view an object that you will show them on Friday once you know the answer. Like, you assign an object to a yes answer, you assign an object to a no answer.
Okay,
And
but
then-
here's a question for you.
Mhm.
Could it be that the protocols, for the fact that they're so stifling and they have to follow these strict guidelines, could it be that is an impediment for, the remote viewing to becoming more potent, and becoming more akin to an actual out-of-body experience?
I don't think so. I think the protocol is important because otherwise you can't know that any sort of psychic activity has happened. Like there's no way to study it scientifically. And I know people were like, okay, well, science can't really study this, but I kind of disagree on that. I'm more in the sort of Dean Radin camp that I think we can use science to explore these fields and these experiences, but we just have to find protocols in which they work, or in which we can at least say with some confidence that something unusual
Yeah, but
happened.
Dean Radin also says, that when it comes to psychic phenomena, there are the Michael Jordans of the world, people who, you almost, only need to give them a basketball and they will learn to do everything by their own. And there are the people who actually need to be coached and to be saying, no, here's how to throw the ball, and here's how you need to do the hoops and whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe with remote viewing, it's you need to guide the people, but there are maybe the exceptional people that Michael Jordan, and maybe we don't even know who the Michael Jordans of the psychic world are.
Yeah.
We think of Ingo Swann as, he was a Michael Jordan. No, maybe he wasn't. Maybe the Michael Jordans are still hidden.
Well, I would say that Ingo Swann was at least a Larry Bird of the psychic world, but like the reason the reason the protocols were developed, well, because so Ingo was doing remote viewing, he just didn't have a word for it. You know, he just did it naturally. But
and he did OBE. He did OBE also
as well. Yeah. And the whole reason he came up with the protocol with Hal Puthoff and stuff was basically to train people to do RV, because, you know, the basic idea is anyone can do RV, anyone can learn how to remote view. Some people are like naturally better at it than other people, but anyone can learn how to do it. And the protocol and the training, you know, and stuff, that was basically so they could have, you know, these army guys trained to use it for, you know, for intelligence applications. You know, it was, I guess somebody made the decision down the line that either we can go look for psychics or we can figure out a way to train people. We can make the assumption that everyone's a little bit psychic, and we can train people to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I talked to Greg about a little bit when I did that Radio Mysterioso show a long time ago. The idea that like everyone's a little bit psychic, right? Like everyone can learn how to play baseball. You know, there's you know, but not everyone's going to be, you know, Hank Williams.
Right.
You know, it's like, you know, and that's true. That's fine. That's just the way the world works. But everyone, I think, can learn how to do it. And, you know, I've been running an RV experiment myself and have gotten like crazy results from people who, you know, didn't have any psychic experiences ever, you know. So I think people are more talented than they think they are a lot of the time.
So here's the question. Is the psychic component something that has to do with genetics?
I don't know. I mean, I have all my most psychic premonition in dreams. It's really, really intense, and I never distrust it. So none of my other relatives do.
That they told you of.
Well, to be honest, to be fair, I don't know my whole father's side of the family, so maybe it's there, you know? Yeah. I don't know, but none of my other relatives have crazy dreams that I am aware of. I couldn't honestly say, but like I never distrust a dream. And I know the ones that are the important dreams. So and they always speak volumes.
Yeah, and I think it's possible, you know, as much as I'm loath to admit it, there probably is some sort of genetic component, because you do have a long lineage of, you know, stories about, you know, witch blood or families where magic abilities or magic talents, which, you know, like magic is psi, and certain families seem to have greater natural talent for psi than other people do. But I also think, too, that shouldn't imply that that only certain people can use magic or do psi stuff. Like everyone can, and like Melissa said, I think it's important that people find out what they're good at. I think it's kind of like the X-Men. Like everyone has a superpower, right? You just don't know what your superpower is until you experiment and try to figure out what you're actually good at. Maybe some people are good at seeing stuff in dreams. Maybe some people are good at out-of-body experiences. Maybe other people are good at summoning spirits. I don't know. Like, I think everyone's good at something. It just takes a lot of experimentation and open-mindedness to find out what that is.
I just hope that my mutant power is not a lame one. You know, like, I don't know, talk to worms or something.
Yeah, my mutant power is I'm able to tell what kind of pizza is in a pizza box before I open it.
Oh, boy.
Oh, all right. Should we do another story here?
Yeah, why not?
All right. Let's look at the neuroscience one. This comes from neurosciencenews.com. Study tackles neuroscience claims to have disproved free will. And basically there have been studies based on, you know, which have claimed to either prove or disprove free will. And the same studies are used to support both viewpoints. And this article is basically saying that the studies weren't very well done and they're completely inconclusive. But this is stuff we hear about constantly in, you know, in things about consciousness and reality. You hear, oh, well, there's a study that shows that we don't have free will because the brain decides before the person makes a decision. And it's just really sloppy science is what it comes down to.
Yeah, I know I've talked about this in the past because I've seen this same study repeated some other places. I think sort of other implication of this study that the article and people aren't asking is maybe it also shows that people are precognitive to some extent.
Exactly. Good.
That's a possibility.
And I think too, it was talking about, I know in the example that I read, like if somebody drops a ball and you go to catch the ball, like the signals from your brain that are going down your arm to contract the muscles to move your arm into position are happening before the part of your brain that like thinks like I'm going to catch the ball. Like you're already moving before you make the decision to move, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that's true. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the study does show that, but it doesn't prove anything. It doesn't prove there's not free will. It just says that people sometimes act before they're conscious of acting.
Yeah, and it's also a matter of instinct in some cases.
Yeah, it could just be muscle memory. It could just be fast switch stuff.
It's almost like saying that if I cannot control the beats of my heart, therefore I have no free will.
Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me. I don't know how much of gamers you guys are, but in first-person shooters, there's this idea that like if you're playing like a sniper, right? Like you think it'd be easy just to like use a mouse and like click on your enemy's head, right? But it's a lot harder in practice. So a lot of these like pro players, they do a thing called flick aiming, and it looks really weird if you're like watching them play. But like whenever they go in for a shot, they like flick their mouse. They do a little flick, and they get shots really well. And I was reading about like why that worked. And there's not been a whole lot of studies on how that works, but it's basically like the idea that you're like not consciously thinking about what you're doing, and that you're letting like muscle memory and like these like kind of like liminal processing elements of your brain control your actions without consciously deciding to do so. And that's what this whole thing kind of reminds me of, like fast twitch kind of reactions.
Would that be akin to those Zen archers that are not really looking at the target when they throw the arrow?
Exactly. It's very similar to that, yeah.
In a very lame kind of way.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think this whole thing of free will, I think it's a little bit of both. Like Red Pill said, you've got things that automatically happen because you can't avoid your genetics, you can't avoid things you inherit. But I think we also have an aspect of us that can make choices. I don't know if it's predestined, but we can definitely make choices on things, and as long as we have an awareness and an education of things.
I would think some kind of automatic response that that your nervous system just does is a whole lot different than making some kind of major life decision that you have to ponder over what path to take.
Exactly.
Yeah, like it's like Melissa's saying, like it may be that like your reactions to certain things are more controlled by things like instinct and genetics, but that you still have the ability to make major decisions. Right.
Yeah.
And that's why, I don't know, in a lot of senses, consciousness and like sentience is actually kind of a bad thing evolutionarily, because it increases like it decreases reaction time by a ton, right? Like if you're in the wild and a tiger tries to jump at you, you don't have time to think about what you're going to do. You have to just react to it, and although, you do see this in people, especially people who've suffered trauma in their childhood and stuff, they can have events. A lot of people throw around the term like triggered or whatever, but what that kind of really means is sometimes people can have events that happen to them later in life that have some sort of like mental relation to things that happened to them that were traumatic. And it can cause them to react in ways that they're not consciously aware of.
Yes.
Yeah. And like, it can affect your mood. It can affect like the way you can do things that you don't want to do. You can get angry. I mean, this is what happens to people who have like PTSD,
Yep.
You can have all these. Yeah. You can have all these sort of reactions that you're not making the decision to have those reactions. Like you're literally you can't control it. It's just it affects you.
You're almost reliving the past in the present, even though it's not happening.
But we're talking right now about instinct and neurons firing and reactions, your biological processes. But what we're not talking about here is about deeper philosophical questions like predestination,
Mhm.
destiny, because that really is, in ancient time, that was really the quiz about whether human beings had free will or not. It was the question not about whether my neurons can determine how I can make my limbs work or not, or whether the gods had a say in on how I will end up living my life. So this article doesn't talk about that.
True. I don't know. I think there's a path that we're supposed to follow, and we can deviate from it if we want, but things don't quite get to where they need to be if you do that. Or maybe they circle around and just get there a different way.
But what about the multiverse? Maybe there's a multitude of paths, and
very
somehow
possibly.
you branch out, but inevitably you'll end up in the same place.
Yeah.
There could be an infinite number of us, out there doing different things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like to sort of believe that there's a path that we do, but it's almost like the things that we have automatically. It's sort of like I don't know, a relay course. We have to get around and make decisions around.
Soraya, the people that did that study, were they Calvinists? Were they trying to disprove free will once and for all?
I don't know. I think there were a couple of studies they were actually talking about.
I've entertained the idea a lot too that there's the possibility that you could explain things like destiny and predestination and even things like precognition if you make the assumption that time is a flat circle and that it's not that you reincarnate into a new body, but that you literally just live the same life over and over and over again into infinity. And yeah, basically that, and then.
Oh, great! I'm gonna have a good sleep tonight.
What if personality has something to do with it? I mean, what if someone's personality has a big drive, like somebody who's more independent has this idea that they have free will, and somebody
what
who
if your
is
personality has to do with your past reincarnations?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, it depends what you believe, but I mean, you see people with more independent personalities who are they take the bull by the horn, and you see people who are more passive who are no, it's just meant to be. And I've seen that even in healing circles where people who are more passive or more passive aggressive sort of just take a narrative that they've been fed when they were little, and then there's other people who are just no, I'm controlling this whole thing.
Well,
so I don't know what is it.
Soraya, you just had Gary Lockman on talking about one of the things you talked about was that kind of that positive thought movement.
Yeah. Yep.
And this idea that you create your own destiny. And that's kind of what Melissa is getting at there.
Yeah, it really am.
But what if it's your destiny to create your own destiny?
There you go.
It's funny.
Whoa.
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
I think that stuff only works if it's within the path you're supposed to be on to begin with.
Okay.
If you just suddenly decide if I decided I wanted to be something that had nothing to do with anything I've been so far, it's not just going to happen. It's you can alter your reality to a degree with this type of stuff, but I think like magic, you can't just decide.
I mean, like Grant Morrison said, you can try to put a spell to become king of the moon, but how the hell are you going to get up there?
Yeah, exactly.
You can become king of the moon in your own mind.
There's a part of me that wants to argue against that, though, and say, no, that sounds so caste. That sounds so you're put in a position, and it's no, you can get out of, you can do what you want. But then there's a part of me that's you have to you have only so much wiggle room.
I had back in November, end of November, there was a friend I was supposed to go visit, and it wasn't working out. And I just had this feeling that this is not something I'm supposed to do. And I said, you know what? Screw that. Let's see if I could do it anyway. And it turns out I could. And then everything kind of fell apart for about a month. You know, it was like one bad thing after another, and I'm like, okay, well, I've proved I can make choices other than the ones that are supposed to happen, but apparently there's consequences for that.
Okay.
You know
there's
what?
also-
No, go ahead, Raphael.
No, Melissa, please go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that so makes sense. I tried to become, after design school, I tried to become a financial advisor. My life went to hell in a handbasket. That's all I can say. I will never go there ever again. I don't know what I was thinking. And that when Soraya said that totally reminded me of when I detoured and went into something totally different. It was the worst experience of my life.
Huh.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I was going to say is that, okay, free will, we're talking about this. I mean, and there's so many ways to juggle this down. Like, for example, right now, I don't have the free will to say, okay, right now I'm going to fly to my over my neighborhood. I don't have the free will to do that. But there are people who are studying the effects of meditation, deep meditation, and sometimes what happens is that they experience the kind of stuff that is being talked about in Eastern religious studies, what they call siddhis. So there are this kind of like supernatural abilities that are kind of expected when you follow these kind of religious practices. People suddenly they find themselves to have abilities to have recognition, and they experience psychokinesis and God knows what else. So I guess what I'm getting at is that I don't feel that human beings in the level of consciousness that we are have free will. I don't think that we are free beings. I don't even feel that we are full conscious beings, but I feel that in other levels of higher levels of consciousness, we may be able to attain that level of free will.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've been studying thalamic stuff recently because I've been going to do things at this OTO lodge that's in Minneapolis, and one of the big things in thalama is sort of discovering your true will, like discovering like what your life is meant to be, and following that path. So, I mean, that's the other thing. Like we assume that we always assume we know what our fate is, but I don't think that's necessarily true, if there is such a thing. I think it's important that we try to discover for ourselves like what our meaning is.
Yes, I fully agree with that. All right. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a mix. I really do. I think there's that we're on a path, but we can definitely get off. It's like we're on a boat in a river, and we can totally ditch the boat and walk around on the shore, but it's not going to get us anywhere interesting. We could sit on the shore for a while, going no, I don't want to go there, but eventually you got to get back on the boat and continue down, or you just die.
That's a good metaphor.
And I've had so many things in my life, especially in the last couple of months, that have like connected to things that are decades old that give me this sense of, okay, this was all planned out like way before and without me.
Yeah.
Like there's just no way any of this is coincidental. So. All right. Well, it's almost 2 hours, so I guess we should probably stop it there.
All right.
Any last words from anyone?
We're all in silence.
All right. So let's go around the room. Tell everyone where they can find you. We'll start with Adam.
Do people really want to find me?
There are people looking for you, Adam.
I know. Conspiranormal.podomatic.com. That's where you can get all the archives of the shows, and of course www.conspiranormal.com. And I guess you can find me sometimes here with my good buddy Soraya.
Awesome. And once live.
Yes, once live. Yeah, that's true. In studio.
Ren?
Hey, so you can find me at liminalroom.com and also on Twitter at Mr_Apol. It's Mr. spelled out MISTER_Apol. And I also operate a Discord server where if people want to talk with cool people about magic and the paranormal, just hit me up on Twitter and I can send you an invite.
All right. Red Pill?
One thing that I would like to plug in this occasion is that I'm currently trying to help Christopher Ryan, who is the host of the podcast Tangentially Speaking, to try to create an ebook out of the conversations that he's had with a number of guests. And the ebook that I'm in charge of is about psychedelics and consciousness. So if you are interested in trying to participate in this, which will mean, go to the archives or transcribe the episodes in order to write the ebook, please contact me at ts1, the numeral 1, drugs@gmail.com.
Okay. And Melissa?
Hi. Well, we're sort of evolving over at the podcast that I do, and with my co-host John Chadwick, and so we are now Drawing Out the Spirits podcast, and you guys can find us at www.espirit.tv and look us up on Facebook, Drawing Out the Spirits podcast, or Drawing Out the Spirits podcast group.
Highly
Awesome.
recommended.
Thank you all. This was great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Soraya.
Gracias.
And a special thanks to all of my Patreons, and particularly those pledging $10 or more for the extra support: Super Inframan, Andy McNamara, William Lovelace, Mark Brady, Allison Cook, Craig Cisneros, Donna Beveridge, Sasha Lorg, Christopher Vaughn, Robert Groom, Scott Morris Everett, Chris Elmquist, Russell Wilcoxon, Patricia Gaia-Quinta, Matthias Sumby, and John Eddy. Thank you all so much. You have been listening to Where Did the Road Go? This show is made possible in part from our Patreons, and we thank you and everyone listening for helping us continue this exploration of the strange. You can always find everything Where Did the Road Go related at www.wheredidtheroadgo.com. And thank you so much for your support.